friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you how we started our backyard homestead on 1/4 of an acre in an urban neighborhood about a year ago, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the steps and the journey that we took to starting our homestead from scratch with the land that we have, which obviously is very tiny and a very small budget as well. If you are new around here and you are interested in starting a homestead on any level on a small scale with the land and the resources that you have available to you right now, I would love if you would watch this video and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And if you are not new around here, thank you so much for watching our channel and watching our videos and being a part of our community. We're truly so happy to have you here. So let's get into this video, but first let's go make a quick latte. Okay, I'm back and I have my coffee. Obviously, I'm looking a little bit cozier than normal today with my hat and my sweatshirt and my coffee, but it is negative 29-degree wind chill today. So we've been running in and out all day trying to check on the animals, take them warm water, extra food, all the things, just to make sure that they stay happy and healthy, because that is much colder than we typically get around here. So that is what we're spending our day doing, but I wanted to enjoy a quick latte while I talk to you. And this one is white mocha and it's delicious. And if you want my homemade syrups, I'll link the video up here because I just did a video sharing 4 of my favorite homemade syrups and this is really yummy. So anyways, now let's talk homestead stuff. Before I even start talking about some of the steps that you can take, I think the first thing that you really kind of need to think through is establishing why you want to do this, why you want to get started with homesteading, why you want to learn some of these skills, etc. For us, it was really important for us to teach our kids. We have 2 toddlers and then 1 on the way, so we have really little kids. They're all under 3, and we really wanted them to be raised from a young age, learning how to care for animals, learning responsibility with that, and learning where their food actually comes from, because in our generation neither of us were raised with that like knowledge, you know. I mean, we knew where food came from, but we didn't actually know or see that in front of us, and we really want to raise our kids with that. We also want to practice sustainability as much as we can, and it was really important to us that we get started now, even though we only have 1/4 of an acre. Get started and start learning those skills now, because if you look back and you wait for your dream homestead, you're really going to wish you had started way sooner with what you could start with, because you would already have those skills ready to go and have that knowledge that would help you so much when you do have, you know, 5, 10, 20 acres in the future to experiment even more with these skills. After you kind of establish your why and think through why you actually want to do this, I think the first step is to start dreaming and also realistically thinking through what you can actually do right now and get started with. So I would recommend choosing 1 to 3 categories to get started with at first, so that you don't overwhelm yourself. And obviously with homesteading in general, there are so many things. There are so many different animals you could try and learn how to raise, and, you know, learn that knowledge along the way. There's gardening and a whole realm of things with gardening. There's inside skills like cooking and baking and sourdough and all of those things. There's like an endless supply. But I would say to start slow, because we made this mistake, and I'll share more about that in a little bit, but it can be really easy to overwhelm yourself with too many things at once. And all of these skills require a lot of time to learn them, and also just a lot of knowledge before you can become experienced, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. And if you're doing that with too many categories at once, it can very quickly get very overwhelming. So when you're thinking through these 1 to 3 categories that you want to start with, I would try and consider 1, your budget. Everyone has a different budget they have available to them right now. Consider what budget you do have and any financial like constraints that you might have at the moment, the time commitment that you have to invest in it, as well as any restrictions that you may have like in your specific area, neighborhood, setting, etc. So to share a little bit about our personal journey, I would say things started a while before we actually even did anything. So our first steps really were spending a lot of time on YouTube, watching different videos about all the different things we were dreaming about, and spending time kind of investing in getting that experience and knowledge from other people who were doing it at the moment, before we even ever bought any animals, started any projects or anything like that. We did that for quite a while, and so you can never spend too much time researching. And I think that that is an important step, is to, you know, watch videos, watch people who are actively doing this, and see the things that you might be interested in. So that was our very first step, I would say. And then right after that, the beginning of our journey really started with cooking from scratch. I started to get interested in learning how to cook from scratch and just implementing that more in our diet. Matt is gluten-free, and so a lot of the things we were buying once he went gluten-free for some different health reasons were pretty expensive and added to our grocery budget pretty quickly. And so I was looking at how to replace those at home with better ingredients and not spending like a fortune while doing it. So as I was cooking throughout the week, I started with just looking up on Pinterest different recipes. Like if I needed cream of mushroom soup, I would look up, okay, how do we make our own cream of mushroom soup from scratch, or cream of chicken soup, or whatever? How do we make these noodles from scratch? How do we make whatever thing that I had already on our meal plan for the week? And I just started doing that slowly. I didn't do it to every single thing all at once. I would say I tried to do like 1 to 2 new things per week, so again, so that I didn't overwhelm myself. And then I jumped into sourdough, and sourdough is a whole journey and I'm still learning. I've been doing it for almost a year now, and I'm definitely still learning all the time, but we use our sourdough almost every day, and we're definitely eating, I would say, ingredient or like products from our sourdough every single day. We use it for various bread products. It's completely replaced the bread that we buy from the store for the past year, aside from when I was very sick in my first trimester, especially when it was really bad. We did buy some bread products from the store just to kind of lighten that load, but aside from that, we have not bought any bread products from the store in a year, and we solely use sourdough for that. And then we also use sourdough for lots of other things like pancakes and muffins, and I mean really anything that we can make that is sourdough, we do. Like we love it, and it's super fun to learn all the skills alongside that. So that was one of the first things that I started with. Next step for us was chickens, since we knew we wanted to have eggs in the backyard, and that was something that we could very easily and fairly cheaply start with as far as animals go. So we did wait until the spring, because there are certain times of year that are much easier to get chicks unless you order them in, but for the most part tons of people get them obviously in the spring. So we waited until they were in the farm stores and we went and got them, and we have 10 chickens now. Absolutely love having chickens. You know, I think it was a whole knowledge building period of like, chickens are interesting because they obviously grow so quickly, and I feel like you have to learn how to care for baby chicks and have the whole brooder set up and all of that, and then they graduate and they get bigger, and then you have to figure out, you know, how to keep them outside, what you need to do for them with that, and then just like the long-term care. They're very easy overall. Like I would say they take very minimal care and intervention really. They're definitely a good starter animal, but there's still a lot to learn with that. We really had a great experience with chickens. In our original batch of chickens that we got, we had one that turned out to be a rooster, so we ended up just giving him away to someone that needed a rooster, because we can't keep a rooster here, nor do we want a rooster at this time. And so we got rid of the rooster once we figured that out. And then we've had one chicken who recently passed away in the past couple months, so we still had her for almost a year, and she did end up passing away. But other than that, we have not had a ton of predator issues personally in a neighborhood, which is amazing. Our chickens stay in with our goats, and yeah, it's been amazing. It's awesome to be able to go outside and just get fresh eggs out there. Obviously right now, with it being winter, we're really getting very minimal eggs, so we are still buying some eggs from the store in the winter, but we weren't at all once they started laying this past summer until they slowed down in the winter time. So chickens are definitely a great starter animal. As everyone says, they're the gateway animal for homesteading. So beware that if you get chickens, you may end up wanting to get more animals down the line. It might end up snowballing faster than you anticipated, but we really do love having chickens. Next up for us was goats. Goats are obviously a smaller animal than like cows or things like that. We really wanted to be able to have raw dairy in our backyard. So we researched all the goat breeds. You know, there's a whole range of different breeds that you can get, and research what would be best for our small setting, you know, how many goats we could actually fit and manage well in the setting that we have. There was a lot to learn with goats for sure, and we started with kids. So we started with 2 bottle babies first, and so we did the whole bottle feeding thing. They were, I want to say they were like 6 to 8 weeks old when we got them and brought them home. Did the bottle feeding for a while, I think until they were at least 12 weeks, and then we got a mama goat who had a baby at her side, and so we could start milking her right away. So that was kind of ideal. We learned a lot in the beginning. Goats are a whole another animal, obviously, and there's all new things to learn. They're very different than chickens, all new different things with care and all of that, but then also milking is a whole new thing to learn as well. We have really enjoyed having goats, and they crack us up all the time. We love their personalities, and we love that we can have milk literally just right in our backyard. So we have dairy and eggs coming right from our backyard on a 1/4 of an acre, and we absolutely love it. Okay, right alongside the animals, really right alongside the same time frame, the other big thing that we took on in our first year was a garden. So we have tried to do a garden kind of in the past. Matt has done like a few different plants here and there, but nothing large scale, and really just like a couple plants, honestly. We spaced out a whole big section of our yard for a garden. It was a lot of work because the land had not been worked in a really long time, so it was all, you know, just covered with grass, weeds, all the things. So we do have an in-ground garden, and we had to do all of the work to obviously like prepare the soil and do all of that, prepare beds, add compost, you know, just all the things, lay out the garden how we wanted it. We had to build a fence as well, which was a whole interesting thing because we also got animals at the same time. The chickens were fine. The goats the goats were a whole adventure, and honestly we spent a lot of the first garden season trying to figure out how to keep the goats in. We didn't have like a lot of issues with them getting out of our backyard, but they would get out of their pen and get into the garden area and eat my plants. So that's a whole separate thing. But we did have to build a fence to go alongside the garden area, and then tweak the fence to make sure that the goats still could not get in there, because it took a few adjustments. But we have, let's see, 6 12 by 4 feet wide garden beds. So I kind of did it like almost like a garden bed, except it's in ground. So I have them separated like that, and then we have a couple vertical arches so that we can have some vertical growing space, and then some cattle panels that we use for tomatoes as well, so that the tomatoes could trellis up it. So I tried to use as much vertical space as I could as well to really maximize the space that we had in this small setting. So it really turned out to be a good sized garden, and like I said, we were new to all of this, so we had a lot of plants. We also did some flowers. We did 2 of those beds with cut flowers, and the rest were all just vegetables, and it was definitely a learning process. Gardening is another thing that, you know, it has a lot of different categories to it. I mean, there's the whole prep work of deciding what you're going to plant and planning that out ahead of time. That took a lot more time than I honestly anticipated. Then there's the aspect of starting. We started everything from seed. So starting from seed and learning how to do that, you know, indoors. We don't have a greenhouse or anything like that. So I kind of just jumped headfirst into all of it. So we started things from seed and then transplanted them outdoors once we had the garden area kind of like ready to go. And then obviously there's maintaining the garden and dealing with pests and troubleshooting different issues as they come up, and it's a lot of things to gain knowledge in, and we're definitely still learning and have a ton to learn next year as well. Here's what I will say about all of it, because those are the 3 main categories that we focused on in our first year of doing this, or I guess 4 if you count cooking from scratch and sourdough. I guess that's 4 categories, but we learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I could share a lot of different lessons, and that might honestly be a whole nother video that I do, because I think that would be really interesting. But one of the main things that I learned is just really don't overwhelm yourself with doing too much at once. I watched so many YouTube videos and everyone preached on this, and I was like, you know, it's okay. Like, I have the time. I'm gonna be home with my kids, and you know, I work from home, but I can also manage this. I can run outside, I can do all the things, and then I'll just get more accomplished in the first year, so I'll be ready for the second year with more knowledge under my belt. Which is true, but we put too much on our plate, and we didn't have any animals that suffered because we put too much on our plate. I think we were very careful about doing that and making sure that we were able to like maintain their care and make sure that they, you know, were leading happy, healthy lives. And we're limited on how many the animals we can have and the capacity we can have in that area. So honestly, if I had 5 acres or 10 acres, I probably would have overwhelmed myself more, because I would have added more and more animals, just being super transparent. But what we did do is it overwhelmed us specifically, and overwhelmed me which then, you know, goes out to my family as well, and the time commitment that each of them took. So very quickly, I would say late into the spring and early summer, it was a lot of things to manage. Like, we were new to having chickens, we were new to having goats, and we had this good sized garden to manage that I didn't know anything about either. So the problem came in when it's like, okay, we have an issue with one of our chickens, or we have an issue with one of our goats, or our garden is struggling in this area and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do in any of these areas, and now I have to do the time to research and look into all of these things at once and figure out how to fix each issue and research it well, because, you know, health of animals comes, you know, first, obviously. And then also we want to have, you know, a good harvest from our garden, because we put a lot of time and money into this also. So that's why I say really just choose those 1 to 3 categories. Don't overwhelm yourself. Start small and take it one category at a time. And then, like, as you feel like you have gained enough knowledge to feel like adequately experienced enough, at least on a basic level, with that either animal or project or whatever it is that you are doing, then move on to the next thing. Because also each of these categories require, at least for us, because we were doing things on a very tight budget, we were doing everything ourselves. So we didn't just go buy a chicken coop or go buy a goat shelter. Like, we were building all the fencing completely from scratch ourselves. We used a lot of pallets to save money, so we had to deconstruct all the pallets, build the different structures that we needed, paint them to make them look a little bit nicer. Like, just all of those things take time. So I remember, like, last spring we had a baby that had just turned 1 and then a 2-year-old, and we were doing projects every single weekend, like all weekend for months in a row, because there was just so much to accomplish. So we got a ton done in the first year. I will say, like, it was an incredible transformation of our backyard and just like how much we did in a year. And obviously most of that work was actually done in more like 4 to 6 months, because it was done in the spring and summer during the time that the weather was nice and all of that. But it did take a toll. We did experience some overwhelm and burnout and get to a place where it was like, okay, my to-do list just for homesteading things is like ridiculously long, and I need to spend hours and hours outside just to get this done. How am I going to manage like keeping my house clean and trying to get my work accomplished at the same time as caring for 2 little kids? So that's my warning to you out there. I think it's very easy to just get in over your head very quickly. The next action step that I wanted to mention to you is to write out those 1 to 3 categories that you want to focus on in your first year, and outline the major steps that it's going to take to get there. So like, if you want to get baby chicks, outline each thing that you need to do. Like, you need to get a brooder set up and figure out how you're going to do that when they are babies, and then you need to figure out what you're going to do for a coop situation once they are outside. Research how much the monthly costs are going to be for their feed, so that you know all of that ahead of time. Just write out all of those little things so that you can then put it in a note in your phone and write out like maybe like 6 months, and put major action steps for each month leading up to when you want to actually go get the baby chicks, and then afterwards as well, if you have any action items after that. I think that just kind of helps you keep organized and keep an idea on your budget of like, okay, we need to spend this much here to get this, and kind of divide that out, as well as the time commitment involved in all of it. The next thing I would say is to not be afraid to cut things out and simplify if you end up getting in over your head. And I say that because if any of you are like me, you're going to hear me talking about this and trying to communicate not to get in over your head and simplify and start from the beginning, starting smaller. But again, if you're anything like me, then you might still do it anyways and end up a few months in and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to handle all of this, and I'm really overwhelmed. And if you get to that point, obviously animals are a little bit different. I mean, of course you can sell animals and rehome them and things like that if you absolutely need to, which I would encourage you to do if you really get in over your head. But if you have other things like the garden or various things like that that are just getting too much, don't be afraid to cut things out. Like, it's okay. It's not a failure. It's a learning experience. You know, last year we really wanted to start our own compost because we had animals for the first time. We wanted to be able to use obviously like their shavings and manure and things like that to do a compost and really utilize everything that we had well. And honestly, that's something that we had to cut out because we had too many other things on our plate. I was like, I don't have time to research this properly at the moment, and so we're gonna have to cut this out and wait until the future. We're gonna just go buy some organic compost, make a connection with someone else in the community and do it that way. We knew we wouldn't be able to use the compost the first season, but still, we did end up having to cut that out completely and not focus on it at all, and that's okay. Like, you can do that. You can backtrack if you get in over your head and just adjust to what you need in the moment. I would also keep a dream list of like future homesteading goals that might be even far off for you. Just keep a dream list going, like in your phone, or if you are a physical paper kind of person, then do it in a journal. Keep it going, and you can come back to that in the future when you have the budget and time and resources that you need available for those. Like for us, some of our really far off like dreams that we have for the future are like eventually owning cows. We would love to get into possibly a dairy cow in the future, we're not really sure, and meat cows, and really learn a lot about that. We really want to raise pigs for meat, and we also have some dreams of having like some sort of cut flower endeavor to bring community in, really, more than anything. Not even so much for profit, although obviously that would be a great side effect of that, but really to just bring the community in more and just experience those connections with people. So those are some of the far off dreams that we have, but I would really encourage you to like write those down, because even if they can't happen right now, that does not mean that they won't happen in the future. For us, going into this next year of homesteading, a few things that we are specifically focusing on is caring for pregnant goats and having a kidding, well, 2 kiddings in our backyard for the very first time. We've had baby goats obviously last year, but they did not kid and like give birth here, so we didn't have to experience that, and I'm very excited to just learn alongside that. Obviously we will have a new baby ourselves, and then very shortly after we will have baby goats running around, and I'm very excited to just learn everything that is involved with that. We already have had them bred and are ready to go on that front, so I can't wait to learn about that. And then milking 2 goats. We milked 1 goat last year, and then we're milking 2 goats this year, and it will be really interesting to use this year to kind of help us determine where we want to go with goats in the future. We have Nigerian dwarf goats, and then we have 1 Nubian, and the Nubian, this will be her first kidding, and so I'm very curious to see how much milk she produces for us, because we really actually enjoyed having a full-size goat in our backyard. She's one of our favorite goats, and I'm very interested to see what her milk tastes like and all of those things, and just compare that to the Nigerian dwarf, because our Nigerian dwarf that we did milk last year did not produce as much as we were hoping to get. So we're interested in kind of learning more about that and figuring out what we want to do in the future. And then the last thing is round 2 of the garden. I got pregnant unexpectedly with this baby right in the height of garden season, so I did all of the seed prep, I did all of the prep for the garden area itself and all of that work, planted everything, started having a harvest, and then got pregnant and got so sick that I was not able to do anything else with it. So Matt tried to keep up as much as he could, but he has a full-time job, he's not here that much, and so we're excited to do round 2 of the garden and just learn more along the way. Also, we figured out, we think anyways, most of the issues with animals getting into the garden, so we hopefully will have more of a harvest because they won't eat all of it this year. And then I also want to delve a little bit into learning about canning and preserving as well, because we didn't have too much of a harvest last year because of the timing of when my pregnancy started and how much time I had in the hospital and all of that, as well as the animals getting into it. Like I mentioned, it's a problem. We did not have tons and tons of harvest that we needed to preserve, so I'm excited this year to spend some time learning knowledge just about like canning, preserving in different ways, and putting up a harvest. I am not making it a goal to like preserve a year's worth of food right now. Eventually in the future that would be amazing, but this year it's more about just continuing the knowledge that we started last year with the garden and learning how to just utilize the food that we do produce well, whether that is preserving, using it seasonally in all of our meals, giving some away to friends, like all of those different things. So those are a few of the things we're focusing on. Hopefully this video gave you some ideas and inspiration on where to start if you are dreaming of homesteading in a small setting, even if you don't have the land that you dream of having in the future. If you're in a neighborhood setting like us, there are still so many things that you can do, and I think it's really important to just start with what you have and utilize what you have and learn those skills now, because you're going to be just so much further if you start now. Like if you look back a year from now, you're going to really regret having not started today. To just start in the capacity that you can, however small that may be. I think it's a lot larger. Even the small steps are a lot larger than we think they are, and they can just add so much value to our life down the line if we get started now. So hopefully this was encouraging to you in some way, and if you are interested in homesteading kind of content, we share a lot of videos on our backyard homestead in general, how we built that, homesteading with toddlers, and just learning those homesteading skills now, even in a small setting, while we work towards our dream homestead in the future. So thank you so much for watching our video. We would love if you subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and we will see you soon. Bye friends, Merry Christmas.